I'm a few years late to the party, but 2016 was an insane year, even in wrestling. AJ Styles made his WWE debut, the brand split was brought back, Goldberg returned, and a WWE Hall of Famer became president. So yeah, kind of a crazy 365 days, but while all that was happening on the national stage, there was also some controversy happening down here in our very own YouTube wrestling community. It got pretty ugly at points, so let's go back to the beginning and follow this series of unfortunate events. Alright, so regarding the YouTube wrestling community, I describe 2016 as one of the first big years. A lot of the major channels had been around for a while, and now had amassed large audiences. With so many people watching, it made the idea of having a meetup specifically for wrestling YouTubers more of a possibility, and that's just what happened, with the creation of the Internet Darlings Live. The event would take place during the weekend of WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, Florida, and would feature a number of the biggest YouTube wrestling personalities. The meetup was orchestrated by Zane from the Wrestling with Wregret channel, and the first two names announced were Blampied from WhatCulture Wrestling, and Kevin Scampoli and Ryan Van Vliet from the Whole Effin' Show, TWFS. The event was officially announced on June 24th, 2016, and things fell apart almost instantly. All three channels uploaded a video announcing the event, and the drama started from either what someone said or what someone forgot to say. We'll start with Blampied's video on the WhatCulture Wrestling channel. The announcement was fine, except that there was no mention of TWFS. WhatCulture's video made it seem like the event was just between them and Wrestling with Wregret, only saying that other wrestling YouTube personalities were going to be there. The reason for WhatCulture leaving out TWFS was because of some bad blood that had developed between them. While that jab WhatCulture made was bad enough, things only got worse when TWFS uploaded their announcement video. First, the host, Kevin Scampoli, insulted both Zane and Blampied, and also made claims he was going to beat up Adam, as well as Brian if he got in the way. We'll get into more detail on the threats later, but both Zane and Blampied actually weren't upset by them. It was other comments Scampoli made that caused outrage. Towards the end of the TWFS announcement video, Scampoli joked they had a domestic violence record. Now, to give some context to the situation, the Whole Effing Show has a lot of adult humor, and their comedy is made to shock and offend. It's also worth mentioning that when Zane was messaging Kevin Scampoli privately, Scampoli said that the trash talking he does is part of his act, and he doesn't mean anything by it. So even though joking about domestic violence fit with TWFS's humor, the higher-ups at WhatCulture were still mad that such a serious subject was used for comedic purposes. The Whole Effing Show's announcement video also created friction between Zane and Kevin Scampoli. As I mentioned earlier, there was already some tension between WhatCulture and TWFS before the event was announced. To try and defuse the situation, Zane had messaged Scampoli asking if he could tone down the threats of violence. Not only did Scampoli refuse, but in the TWFS announcement video, the message was shown and Zane was mocked for it. So yeah, the event was off to a very rough start to begin with. Now before going on, let's talk a bit about the threats Scampoli made about beating up Adam. During the earlier stages of the Internet Darlings, Kevin had pitched to Brian the idea of doing a Scampoli vs. Blampied storyline with Zane in the middle. This is all going to be Kayfabe, of course, and would come to a head at the Internet Darlings, so when Kevin was talking about beating up Plumpy, he was getting the feud started. Zane later revealed they never wanted to do any storylines, and for the event just to be a traditional panel discussion. However, he never flat out turned down Scampoli's idea, because he wanted to keep things going smoothly, which, ironically, is the exact opposite of what happened. That was the first problem. Another was that TWFS and WhatCulture never spoke to each other. During the whole planning phase, Zane was the middleman between the two. Had all of them been able to talk to each other, some of the conflicts could have been worked out. Kevin Scampoli did say later that they were going to have a Skype call a few days after the announcement was made, but by then, it was too late. Anyways, let's recap where we left off. WhatCulture ignored TWFS, Scampoli joked about domestic violence, which made WhatCulture upset, and Zane was mad that Scampoli had made his private message public. So day one and the Internet Darlings event was already on fire. Not long after the announcements were made, an ultimatum was given to Zane. Either kick TWFS off the show, or Blampied wasn't going to appear. The face of Wrestling with Wregret said, while it was a decision he hated to make, it was easy for him to go with WhatCulture, since they have a larger audience. A few hours after the Internet Darlings announcement videos were uploaded, Zane officially announced on Twitter that the Whole Effing Show was out of the event. Now, a Twitter user named Ramondinho tweeted a screenshot of a text message between Zane and, presumably, Kevin Scampoli. The text said that TWFS's announcement video would contain similar humor from Scampoli, and that this is how Kevin and Ryan Van Vliet would roll into the event. Zane didn't deny the authenticity of the text, but did respond by saying, quote, "Not featured. I'm going to put you on blast for having the temerity to ask that I show some restraint." Basically what I got from this is Zane knew Kevin Scampoli was going to use his brand of humor in the announcement video, but didn't know the specifics, or that he's going to bring up Zane's message. Now what's interesting is Scampoli said that he got a message from Brian Zane after the TWFS announcement video went up saying, quote, "good stuff," and yet later said that he was upset with his private message being made public. If that's true, perhaps Zane was still wanting to go along with things and avoid sharing how he felt, just to keep the event running smoothly. Furthermore, Kevin said that he thought WhatCulture not mentioning TWFS was perfect for the storyline he had, but Brian Zane later said both he and Scampoli were upset about it. Maybe Kevin Scampoli was mad about WhatCulture ignoring TWFS, but still thought it would work well with the storyline? I don't know, but either way, the whole effing show being taken off the internet darlings created a wave of backlash. Things were made even worse when WhatCulture filed copyright claims against TWFS. More fuel was added to the fire when Brian Zane took a shot at the domestic violence joke on Twitter. He later admitted his emotions got the better of him, and he had no right attacking another channel. Kevin Scampoli also got involved, and began attacking both Brian Zane's family, as well as Adam Blampied's. The drama continued to linger on for a while, with Brian Zane still addressing it in December of 2017. As for the actual Internet Darlings event, a total of 7 channels attended, and about 230 fans packed the venue. The response was mostly, if not all, positive, so it seems like it worked out well in the end. Now with it approaching 4 years ago since all this drama happened, everyone seems to have moved on and gone their separate ways. There's a lot to learn from this whole fiasco, and I don't think anybody was perfect. Of course, TWFS making Zane's message public wasn't right, and Kevin Scampoli's attacks and comments afterwards were out of line, even if he was doing it as an act. It's unclear if it was Adam Blampied and or management at WhatCulture's decision to ignore TWFS, but either way, that wasn't right either. To elaborate on that as well, it seemed like WhatCulture didn't want anything to do with the whole effing show, which is fine, but then why'd they agree to do an event with them? It seems like they wanted to have their cake and eat it too, and if that's the case, I guess they got their wish. Brian Zane isn't without fault in all this, but I do feel for the guy. He wanted to put together this really cool meetup and help bring the YouTube wrestling community together, and in addition to the stress and cost of getting an event put together, he had to deal with a lot of abuse directed towards himself and his loved ones. Nevertheless, he should have been more firm with how the event was going to go, and made sure everyone was on the same page. I do understand though why he let things go on, since why rock the boat and potentially ruin your event if you don't have to? It's easy to look back at things now and say what should have been done, and while the past can't be changed, I think that anybody can learn something from what happened here. Brian Zane did do a second Internet Darlings event in 2018, but hasn't done another one since. He said in December of 2019 that he's moving away from that format for the time being, but implied he's going to do more live events. I do hope the Internet Darlings or something similar happens in the future. It seems like it was a good event, and I love seeing the wrestling community on YouTube come together. But as for all this drama, let's treat it like the old day and leave it in 2016. Phew, another one of these essay type videos is in the books. Speaking of which, I did a second video like this called The Rise and Fall, and Rise Again, of Adam Blampied, and you can check it out here. Anyways, I'm Zach from Tap Out Corner, and take it easy.